I'm unhauling books. The first one I have is The History of the World in Bite-Sized Chunks by Emma Marriott. It's very thin, and I don't really know how you could get the entire history of the world in a book this size. Bye! Then I have World Mythology by Mark Daniels. I got this at the same time as I got the History of the World book, and it's just not good, and they also use quite dated language for a book that was published I think in 2016. I then have Autumn by Ali Smith. So this is part of the seasonal quartet that Ali Smith is writing. I think the last one's come out now, but I'm not sure. I read Autumn and I liked it fine. It's signed, so maybe I can't get rid of it. I got this at the Cheltenham Literature Festival because I used to volunteer at the Lit Fest. I used to do like AV and camera work and lighting at the Cheltenham Literature Festival, and so I would get to attend events, and Ali Smith was one of those events. Then I have The Mandibles by Lionel Shriver. This follows the Mandibles, which is a family that used to have loads of money and then they lose all of their money. I read it, it was fine, but I don't... Oh, goodbye. So I sort of have some books that I know I should get rid of because I'm no longer reading the series that they're in, or I didn't love them, couldn't get into them, and this is The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. So I read The Bone Season and I really liked it, but I sort of found what came to be kind of weird, and I just couldn't massively get into this one after reading The Bone Season. I'm not certain that I'm going to get rid of this, but it's on its way out. Then I have This Savage Song by V. Schwab. So I like the Shades of Magic series by V. Schwab. This one is a different series that is about music or something. I read it and it was fine, but I just didn't like it as much as the other series, so I don't need it. The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. So again, I've read it and it was fine. I quite liked it at the time, but I don't see myself rereading it. Not all of the books that are on my shelves that I've read are ones that I'm gonna reread. They're just ones that I connected with more than this. I just expected more from it. I have Witch Child by Celia Rees. So this, as you can probably tell from the shiny cover, this was a required reading book from my school, and I really liked it at the time. I think I tried to read the sequel and I didn't like it as much, but I'm just not interested in having this anymore. The Feathered Man by Jeremy DeQuid. So my local independent bookshop has this set of shelves called Bargain Corner, where they put any books that have come into the shop damaged or that have gotten damaged in the shop, and they sell them at a discounted price. I got this on that shelf, and I think it's about people who pull people's teeth out and also something else. I tried to read it and I didn't like it, so goodbye. Temerary by Naomi Novik. So I have never read Naomi Novik. I've owned Uprooted for many a year and I've still not read that. I think this is about dragons involved in the Napoleonic War, which my university town Cheltenham has loads of second-hand bookshops and also charity shops with a big second-hand book area. And so I got a lot of books from all of the various bookshops, and a lot of them were fantasy and high fantasy, and mistakes were made in the purchasing department. Panic by Lauren Oliver. So this was the first book I ever bought because of BookTube, and I remember buying it in Waterstones, which has made me hang on to it for this long just for the memories of being so excited to get this, and also being obsessed with this girl's hair on the cover. I read it and I thought it was fine. Again, it's just one of those that's not massively stuck with me, and I remember it being kind of, again, the premise sounds really cool because I think it was about like a bunch of teenagers playing games before they, like right after they've graduated, and they kind of gamble with their lives and do dangerous things like jump off of cliffs, but I thought it was going to be more, basically. All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. So this is a YA contemporary that deals with depression and suicide. I won this in a competition that I entered with my friend. We went to a book signing for Sally Green and Jennifer Niven. We went for Sally Green because we were massive fans of the Half Bad series, so that's why we went, and Jennifer Niven was also there. And there was a competition within the Waterstones. It was kind of like a scavenger hunt. You can win a couple of books from Penguin, and we entered and we won. I read it and I enjoyed it at the time, but I don't think it's one that I want to reread. Mothering Sunday by Rosie Goodwin. I've owned it for 3 years and I haven't read it and I don't care to. I have Room by Emma Donoghue. I bought this from a charity shop. Most of my books I buy from charity shops. I just don't want to read it anymore. It might leave or it might not, and that is A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabo. I've never had to pronounce this person's name before. So this is a fantasy translated from French. The second book's come out. I haven't read it. I think it came out a while ago. And the main reason I was drawn to it was because of the cover, which is glorious. They have a world and all the world's islands. This girl can go through mirrors. She has to marry a random guy that she doesn't know, and it just sort of goes from there. I didn't really like it. I just couldn't connect with the main girl, but I think that I have some friends that will really like it. So even though I'm unhauling it, it'll probably go to them, and then it's like it's not really gone. This is another one where I don't know about, but it's probably going, and that is The Sight by David Clement Davis. So this book my friend bought me many years ago. I think we were about 12 or 13, and again, I'm a massive fan of the Chronicles of Ancient Darkness, which is about a boy, a wolf, and Wren, their friend. This book is about a wolf pack living their lives in this cold place, and that's it. I could never get very far into this, and my friend that bought it for me also bought it for herself at the time, and she's just unhauled it, so now I feel like I'm allowed to unhaul it. I was keeping it for ages because of the memories, and I read it, well, I tried to read it while I was on holiday, but I'll still remember the memories without the book. Goodbye. That's one stack down. Right. I'm not going to do this stack yet because I'm leaning on her. So this is another one that I might keep. The Coffin Path by Catherine Clements. I think it's like a gothic set in Yorkshire. I think it's about a woman that farms sheep and she lives on the coffin path. And there's like a spooky guy in it. Then I have All That Remains, A Life in Death by Sue Black. This is a memoir of Sue Black. I think that she is a deaf person. How do we say those words? Sue Black is a professor of anatomy and forensic anthropology. She focuses on mortal remains in her lab at burial sites and scenes of violence. I'm a big fan of Caitlin Doherty, who is here on YouTube as Ask a Mortician, and I've read all of her books and I really liked them, and so I was looking for something in a similar vein. This one was a little bit too autobiographical for me. I'm not a big fan of memoirs that are about science that are too autobiographical. I like to know a little bit about their life, but I don't need to know so much, and I just found this was slightly too personal for me to be a big fan of it, so I couldn't actually get through that. The Rivals by Richard Brinsley Sheridan. This was, again, it was a play that I studied in school. Look, all my little notes. And I hated it. I hate The Rivals. Everyone in it is an idiot. I did not like it. So I'm getting rid of it, finally. That's all I have to say. Goodbye, The Rivals. I have The Faithful Couple by A.D. Miller. I think this is about two boys. Something happens and then they grow when they were children, and they grow up, and then as men they can't stop thinking about it, or something like that. I don't care. I bought this one again in the like discount area of my local independent bookshop, and it was not a lot of money, which always will get me to buy a book if it's cheap. It's not got very good reviews on Goodreads. I've never been like, oh my gosh, I really want to read that book. Never. So it's going. I have Normal People by Sally Rooney. I hated this. I think everyone knows what Normal People's about. Like, I read this when I was just out of third year of uni, so I was kind of close to the age of the characters, and I don't know whether to enjoy it you need to be a bit older and to have more separation from being at uni, but I did not like it. Then I have two books in a series, which again was part of my second year, first year, second year, I'll buy any high fantasy I see thing, because basically I got really into Game of Thrones and Robin Hobb, and I was like, great, love this. I finished Game of Thrones first year of uni, I'm still making my way through Robin Hobb, and I was like, I want to read some more high fantasy. So I bought every high fantasy I saw. The problem with doing that is that they're massive, so they take ages to read, so you could probably just buy one at a time and see how you get on with it. not me. I'll just buy a million and then move on from the genre. I have 2 books here, Shadow and Betrayal and Seasons of War. I don't really know what they're about, and I have so many high fantasy books, so don't really care to know. Speaking of buying any high fantasy I see, I have another 2 books from a high fantasy series. What do they call this? Lightbringer series? The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. I had a paperback of this, I read it. I can't even get into how much I didn't like it. I enjoyed it fine to start with, but I feel like there's a twist in this. If you've read this book, you know what the twist is, and I'm just not really sure how no one noticed, especially the one woman that's meant to be... I can't tell you about it because I don't want to spoil it for anyone that might enjoy it, but I'm just saying, I think everyone in this universe must be stupid if they didn't get the twist. And the audience, I'm not saying that the audience are stupid for not getting the twist, because the audience has no way of knowing it because we can't see the characters, we can only read about them. I'm not a fan, so I'm getting rid of the Black Prism, and I'm also getting rid of the Blinding Knife. I have Young Sherlock Holmes Death Cloud by Andrew Lane. I really liked this book when I was younger. I read it while I was on holiday with some of my friends in Wales, and we made a film, not of this, of something else, but I have been keeping it to remember the holiday. I'll remember the holiday without you. Goodbye. Next I have V.H. Leslie Bodies of Water, which I think is about, I've read it. It's about Victorian London and water doctors, which is like, they made women like sit in baths of water to make them better. It doesn't work. I read it, it was fine, but it's going now. I have Bookworms, Dog-Eared and Squashy Big Armchairs by Heather Rees. I've never read this. It's the kind of book people get you because they know you like books. So they buy you a book about books. I don't like books about books, so I'm getting rid of it. I have The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This was another one that was required reading, and by required reading I had an exam on it, so I sort of had to read it. This was the one that I annotated for school. I don't really like The Great Gatsby, and I have another edition of it anyway, so I don't need you. I have The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I liked this because it was a tall paperback. I think my friend got it for me for a birthday. I read this and I thought it was fine. I actually quite enjoyed it at the time, but I'm just over it now and I don't want to keep it. Goodbye. The Killables by Jenna Malley. This is another YA sci-fi dystopian book. I think it's about like evil people? Evil has been eradicated, the city has been established, and citizens may only enter after having the evil part of their brain removed. I remember that. If they show signs of evil emerging, they are labelled a K. I liked it at the time. I also lent it to my friend and we kind of had like a little, you know, every now and then we'd mention it to each other. Joanne Harris, Rune Marks. So I think this is a Viking thing, but I don't really know. It might also be about goblins. The only thing I remember about it was that there were goblins in a kitchen. If that means anything to you, good. There's all like dead plants on these books. I have Ink and Bone by Rachel Kane. Goodbye to You. This is about the Great Library of Alexandria and a world where it was never destroyed and all of the knowledge wasn't lost. I have The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. Again, I've not read it. This is a quote from Heat. Did you love The Hunger Games, partial to an episode of Game of Thrones? Then you're going to want to dive straight into this. Well, I'll tell you a secret. I did like The Hunger Games and I've read all of Game of Thrones and I have not dived straight into this. It's about a girl who is the queen and doesn't want to be. I have The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I just don't care to read it. So I then have 3 by Sarah Lotz. This is about 3 people that survive a massive plane crash or a whole bunch of plane crashes across the world. Again, I got it from a charity shop and I've never read it. Finally, of this bunch, I have Hild by Nicola Griffith. Let me tell you about this book. So again, it does the classic thing. You could describe Hild as being like Game of Thrones without the dragons. What's the point then? Reads like a thriller? I think not. It's impossible to read. I was reading one point at school and I just couldn't understand it. And I don't think it's because I'm stupid, because I got my clever friends to read it and they were like, nope, no idea what's going on. If it reads like a thriller, it's only because you have no idea what's going on half the time. So basically what I gathered was it's about, I think it's like Anglo-Saxon, and this girl called Hild, and I think she can see the future, and her mum tries to marry her off to some king. But I just couldn't understand what was happening. Like at one point they're weaving, then they're milking cows, then they're in a field. It was just very confusing about what was happening. So it's going. Those are all of the books, which means that I can move some of my books that sit like this into here. Those are some of the books I'll be getting rid of, and then there might be some classics joining them in a bit. Bye!